The Glenn Beck Program.
So Rand Paul this week talked a little bit about reining in the NSA, and he said he would abolish the spying on Americans day one of his presidency, and I believe him. Now, if he doesn't become president of the United States, or Ted Cruz doesn't become president, there's a lot of Republicans that will not allow this to happen. Representative Thomas Massie from Kentucky has just proposed a new bill, the Surveillance State Repeal Act, which would completely pull back, completely abolish and repeal the Patriot Act. Is that a good idea? I personally say yes. We can come back and look at the individual pieces one by one, but we got to get out of this business. Thomas Massie is coming up next.
This is the Glenn Beck Program.
Boy, we have a jam-packed hour. We have to get to Harry Reid. He has quadrupled down on this outrageous lie, making him one of the one of the worst people in the world.
No
seriously.
question. Oh, no
seriously.
question.
Good summary and accuracy.
Yes.
Yeah, just one of the worst people I've ever seen. Rand Paul versus Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Rand Paul may have made one of the one of the smartest moves I have seen any politician make. This is just brilliant. An abortion debate between Rand Paul and Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Pretty amazing. We'll get to that here in a second. One thing that we wanted to investigate, and we wanted to investigate it with you, because it's really an important bill. It is the Surveillance State Repeal Act, H.R. 1466. And what this does is it completely repeals the Patriot Act and stops all the NSA spying, which has happened because of the Patriot Act. A lot of people might say that this is a really bad thing. A lot of people might say we'll never get this thing passed. But the guy who came up with the bill is from Kentucky, U.S. Representative Thomas Massie, and he's here with us now. Congressman, how are you, sir?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Glenn. This is actually a joint effort. It's a bipartisan bill, and Mark Pocan from Wisconsin is the Democrat co-sponsor.
Okay. The odds that this will happen.
The odds that this will happen. Well, let me tell you what. Something has to happen. Something's going to happen because provisions of the Patriot Act will expire this spring. And if you remember, they tried to get those reauthorized while Harry Reid was in the Senate. Didn't happen. And so these things are going to expire if Congress doesn't do something.
Amen.
Of course, they're going to want to do a blanket reauthorization, but I don't think they have the votes to do that in Congress. So to get this discussion started, we said, let's just repeal the whole thing.
Okay, I'm in love with this act. I think what is happening in the with the government, with the NSA, is an abomination. Our founders would hate it. It is so far beyond imagination that it needs to be stopped. And I just don't know how many people have the courage to stop it, because what will happen is if there is a problem, they will go. What will be said in the halls of Congress is, okay, next time we get hit by somebody, remember, you're going to be blamed because you'll be the one that repealed the Patriot Act, and people will fold.
They say that in classified briefings, in open briefings. They browbeat us with that. They've even held up pictures of the towers during debates, private debates on this, and said, do you want to be responsible for this again? But you know what? You're right. Our founding fathers would be appalled. You know, some people think the revolution was about taxes or tea, but really it was sparked by this very issue. The Crown, King George II and King George III issued general warrants called writs of assistance.
Yes.
That allowed agents of the Crown to go anywhere, anytime, into anybody's place.
They could write their own. They could write their own warrant, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and these warrants could be transferred, and they lasted until the king died.
Okay,
but at least they got some relief, right?
Right. So right now we are doing all kinds of things because of the Patriot Act. Tell me specifically what this means if you repeal it. Give me both good and bad.
Well, it would mean the mass collection and retention of everybody's phone records would stop immediately. That is the most significant thing that would happen. We also...
Okay. Wait. Let's take this one at a time. Here's what makes me say that will never happen. Do you know how much money we spent on the NSA? You think that thing's going to go into mothballs? They'll never do that. They'll never stop that.
Well, if they would reassign their efforts, I'm not particularly upset with the money that's being spent to track down terrorists and to prevent another 9/11. I'm upset that it's being spent to spy on Americans.
Yes, I agree.
Rededicate
Definitely.
that money to genuinely, keeping our country safe. Maybe doing things that would stop the next Boston bomber.
Yes. Okay. All right. So the next thing.
So basically, the collection of all of your metadata, your phone records, who you call, that would stop. And then also this PRISM program that harvests not just your metadata, but the actual content of your emails. That would stop because in addition to repealing the Patriot Act, we repealed the 2008 Fisa Amendments Act.
Wow.
In 2007, George Bush got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Everybody pretty much acknowledges that they were doing unconstitutional and illegal activity that wasn't within the purview of Congress. And so they said, okay, we'll do it legally now, but we need you to write some more laws. So in 2008, when they tried to bring this program that they were running illegally back under the law, they got Congress to expand the powers of the Fisa Act, which has enabled them to collect not just your metadata, but your content. If they have reason to believe you're communicating with somebody overseas. And, of course, if your data goes to a server, how do you know that server is not in Iceland or Canada or, the router hasn't routed your traffic across international borders? So basically they've been harvesting all of this data.
How is it that our borders are wide open? We have caught, the Blaze had an exclusive story this week that we have caught an Iraqi soldier that went and trained in the Ukraine with the Russians, was a Russian agent, was on his way, I think, up to Baltimore. We know that the White House has just been hacked into, sensitive part of the servers at the White House, by the Russians, and yet this guy just disappeared. We don't know what happened to him. The feeling is he was released at the border. How is it our borders are wide open, and yet the NSA has turned us into the bad guys and is spying every way imaginable on us?
I don't know, Glenn. It's very disappointing the fact that now we've turned the cameras on and the information gathering on every American citizen. As someone said, we're collecting more information on Americans in the United States in the name of terrorism than we are on Russians in Russia.
Yeah, we're going through one of those Edward Snowden interviews that aired recently. And, he's just talking about how even if you in Des Moines email your brother in Florida, if that bounces outside of the country to any server, even if it has nothing to, they're totally inside the country, these communications, they can monitor those.
And they're saying it's constitutional because they're collecting it, but they're not looking at it.
Right. I don't buy that at all.
Not at all.
Edward Snowden, is he a hero or a traitor?
Rather than to say what Edward Snowden is, because I don't know if the guy cheats on his taxes, I don't know what websites he visits, let me talk about what he did. And I'm going to assume he took an oath, the same oath that I took, which is to protect and defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. The actions that he took, the first action he took, which was to reveal these unconstitutional programs, that is, in my opinion, the definition of patriotism. Now, the second act he took, which was to leave the country, was an act of self-preservation.
Yep.
Now, do either of those make him a traitor? I don't think so.
I think you're right about that.
I think so too.
Now, what has he done in Russia? I don't know.
I don't know.
Has he turned over evidence or secrets to the Russians now? I don't know, but I think you're right.
He claims he didn't take any of that with him. It's not on his hard drive or in his personal possession. And he didn't want to go to Russia. We revoked his his traveling papers, his passport when he was trying to get to South America.
So, Congressman, we're talking to Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky about his Surveillance State Repeal Act. When is this due for a vote?
Well, it's gone to various committees of jurisdiction. It will go to the Select Intelligence Committee, and it will go to the Judiciary Committee. Now, this is one of the problems that we have in Congress, is that there are three committees that are handpicked by the Speaker. And to be on the Select Intelligence Committee, you have to drink the Kool-Aid, or you're not going to get picked. And so I don't think it's going to get a very favorable review in the Select Intelligence Committee in the House. And
so does that mean it dies there? Because I remember I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill.
Well, that's the way
he can die in committee.
Stuff is supposed to go to committee. Now, the Speaker brings things to the floor without running them through committee all the time. So this could come to the floor that way. I will mention there are other ways to introduce parts of this bill, one of which myself and Zoe Lofgren from California did last summer as an amendment to an appropriations bill. One of the things that's in the Surveillance State Repeal Act is a provision that prevents the government from forcing companies to put secret backdoors in their products. Now, we attached that legislation to an appropriations bill last year, and it passed by a veto-proof majority in the House. And then, behind closed doors, it was stripped out of the Cromnibus.
Jeez.
These
guys, man, we're dealing with some really bad dudes in Washington, D.C. I don't know how you keep your soul, but I spoke to another congressman just the other day, and he brought your name up as one of the really good guys in Washington, D.C. It was high praise coming from this man.
Well, I appreciate that. Some days it's very discouraging when you get something passed with a veto-proof majority and then they strip it out behind closed doors. But you just got to stick with it. And there are lots of battles to fight. We can't fight them all alone. We need your listeners calling their congressmen and telling them to get on these bills, to become co-sponsors. That's how you get a thing up for a vote.
All right. We will do so. It's H.R. 1466, the Surveillance State Repeal Act. It is going to take some miracles and a lot of phone calling and a lot of emailing from our audience and others. But we're not going to get rid of the NSA unless somebody like Ted Cruz or Rand Paul is president of the United States and he just repeals that executive order and takes a strong stand on the Patriot Act. But we're going to have to take it on ourselves. The Surveillance State Repeal Act, H.R. 1466. Call your congressman and tell them to co-sponsor this bill now. Congressman, thank you so much for talking to us. God bless.
Thank you very much, Glenn. God bless you.
Back in just a second. Our